Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, October 27th, 2024, coming to July from Florida Media here in Rockville Center. Have another stupendous show coming up for you tonight here at Hockey Night in New York. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me, as always, is Mr. Stefen Rosner. And joining us a little later is Ethan Sears from the New York Post. Stefen, how do you do?
I'm doing fantastic, Sean. We have a new face in the studio.
Is that right?
I mean, I think so. I've never seen him before.
You are right. It's true.
Good.
Yeah, you're right. Yes, we do. Jack is hanging out with us, our first Patreon patron. Yes, he is here in the studio hanging out with us. He's going to get involved a little bit during Questions Brewing. We appreciate him being here. Going to have a little fun. But before we dive into the main fun, I want to tell you all about our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. We are also proud to be sponsored by the brand new Center Station Bar and Grill in Rockville Center. Catch every Isles game with great food and drinks at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center all season long. And we're also happy to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That's RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And if you are hanging out with us live and you want to ask us some questions during the Questions Brewing segment, type in Questions Brewing with your question, and we will get to it then. And with that out of the way, Stefen Rosner, let's talk Islanders hockey.
Well, first, I just want to comment. Your spelling is always exceptional with that. You don't ever stutter with that. It's great.
Reading top to bottom, left to right, you know?
I mean, you've been doing it for a while, but yeah. It's good.
And so now I got to let you all know that it's time for Experience Points, presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe. That's on the cards, too.
Yeah, nice. Good job.
All right, folks, it's time for Experience Points. That is where we make our points about the Islanders' experience in the previous week, and it was a rough one. We're going to dive into the games, but first...
Experience points?
No, but come on, pal. We talked about this before the show started.
I'm sorry.
We're going to talk about the roster.
Oh, right. Let's get to the
remember that?
stuff.
Yeah,
right? I do
couple
remember,
of moves. Couple of moves.
I thought you were going into experience points. Anyway,
Jeez.
yeah. So before the game last night, Anthony Duclair, LTIR, retroactive.
Yes.
So he can return November 14th versus Vancouver. LTIR rules, you have to miss 10 games and 24 days. He will miss 11 games because you have to get the days. Matt Martin gets a contract from PTO. He worked extremely hard for this with the extra money with Duclair coming off the books. He gets a 1-year league minimum, $775K. Pierre Engvall, recalled.
Yeah.
Hudson Fasching, recalled. And Liam Foudy, it is Foudy, per Foudy. I asked him.
Right.
He gets sent down after 2 games. Didn't really get to show off his speed, and that's kind of his bread and butter. Not his fault, I don't think. I think the line struggled, but he gets sent down, and then they're in the game. Engvall and Martin play. Wallstrom and Foudy aren't in. And Romanov, upper body injury. We'll get to him a little bit later. Chalowski played in his first game this year. So, yeah, those are the big moves. And I do want to start off with something. I want to make a statement here.
A statement? Okay.
Should I stand up? No.
Please don't.
So there is speculation going on Twitter, X, whatever you guys want to call it, about Wah and about Lamoriello. And I just want to say that we're not going to talk about what exactly happened because we have no idea what exactly happened. And that would be wrong of us to push that. We know that Lou spoke to us before the game, explained the call-ups, and said that he and Wah are on the same page talking every day about moves. And we know after the game when Wah was talking, he was asked about Martin, he was asked about Engvall, and Wah made it clear that, Lou decided X, Lou decided Y to play them. So what we know, and from everything, is that while Wah, we thought, had complete control over the lineup, things like that, Lou does have a say, and we're just going to leave it at that. I know there might be questions about it. We don't know. There's no point in spreading speculation because we don't have facts about these things. No one was in the room. No one's what we saw. All we could talk about is what Wah said post-game. And Wah made it clear that Lou had a say in these roster moves and that they were playing. So that's where we're going to leave it until official news comes out, which probably will never come out.
Right.
We're going to leave it at that just because there's no point in diving into speculation. There's just no point there.
Yeah, that's pretty much where it is, right? I mean, you can kind of read into whatever they said however you like. You can speculate however you like, but we don't have any answers as far as, what may or may not be happening behind closed doors. And, that's kind of it. And it's definitely a hot topic right now, and we'll see if and when anything else unfolds from that.
Yeah, and of course, too, people spreading stuff on social media for attention and adding
you got to be careful
facts,
what you read on social media, because it's not always true. So until there's actually something official that happens in one way or another, we kind of just have to leave where it is.
Yeah, so we should probably get to the games of the week, right?
Yeah, let's
dive
go
right in.
Tuesday versus the Detroit Red Wings, a crushing 1-0 loss for the New York Islanders because they did everything right but put the puck in the net. Dominated play pretty much throughout the game. Basically tripled the Wings in shots, but none of those shots went in the net. They let one in. Patrick Kane sneaks one in behind Ilya Sorokin. And
the first shot of the game.
That's right. The first shot. And this is a game that the Islanders got to win. They're at home. They're playing against a team who they're expected to be on top of in the standings, and they've struggled to, get more points so far. So this is a game where you're home. You got a team like that coming in. You got to get a win, especially when you put a performance like that out in the ice. Listen, these things are going to happen throughout an 82-game season where you're just not going to find the back of the net no matter how good you play. But this could have been a feel-good little win for the Islanders, and unfortunately it was a feel-bad loss.
And a lot of the narrative was how good Alex Lyon played. And, I mean, he did make 30 saves, but a lot of the shots from outside. I spoke to Lyon after the game. He credited his defense for really keeping the traffic away. There wasn't a lot of traffic. That's one thing Wah said post-game was, I would have liked to see more traffic in front. That doesn't happen. The power play goes 0 for 3, and this was the game where Barzal and Horvat are separated on the power play. Now, everyone went up in arms, and I do agree. I know you don't want to separate them at 5-on-5. Seems counterproductive to do it on the power play. But we asked Wah, and Wah gave an explanation like he always does, and he pretty much said that by separating the units, with Barzal and Horvat, it was clear as day. Horvat was the one-time spot. They were trying to get him in the bumper, in the pocket for that one-timer. Everyone knew what was happening. We all knew what was happening. Detroit knew what was happening. And so what this changes, not Detroit, the game before that, but what this changes is that now Barzal has options to pass to 2 or 3 guys for a one-time spot. Nelson across for the one-timer, Holmstrom in the bumper. And Horvat on the right side, he could do it with Pajot in the bumper, go back to the point, things like that. So it opened up more options. As the week progressed, we saw that group one more time in the game against the Devils, but then we saw Barzal and Horvat back together. But let's move on from that game because they did get a win this week.
They did. Barely, but they did, yes. The New Jersey Devils hosted the Islanders on Friday night. That was a 4-3 overtime win, squeaked out by the Isles thanks to a overtime winning goal from the connection of Matt Barzal and Bo Horvat. And this is another game where the Islanders have a late lead. They take the 3-2 lead into the third period. And finally, the Devils come knocking. They get the tying goal. Jesper Bratt, I believe, was the guy who tied it up there. And you have another situation where you look back at last year and you're like, we're kind of seeing the same things creeping up here. And the further you get along in the season, the more you see it happen. Does that mean this is something that's going to carry over, or is this kind of a freak thing through 8 games? And we're going to be talking about Saturday in a moment.
Is the word trend going to come back into the vocabulary?
I mean, you know what? We're kind of heading there, right? I mean, it's early, but you can't deny what we're seeing on the screens here or in the stands. You know what I mean? So, this is something that maybe they get it, they have it happen now. They get it out of the way early, and then you're feeling better about it. But truthfully, I understand any sort of concern that fans might be having because this is stuff that was supposed to be solved during training camp. We said this last week. Waz getting his full training camp. They're going to work on this stuff. They're going to figure out ways to, minimize this stuff. Right. And so far, it's pretty much been the opposite.
And I will note that the Islanders did give a point to a division rival that they're trying to catch.
Could have done without that.
A minute 29 away. Getting the win's important, obviously, and games. First off, blown leads are going to happen in a season. No team goes 82 games.
Correct.
And
doesn't matter who you are.
The problem is we've talked numerous times. It's like a broken record. You got to get these points early in the year. If you blow these games early and you don't win, or you get 1 point, or you give a division rival a point, we wonder why in early April they're fighting for their lives to get in. And also want to mention, too, we talked about Detroit, no traffic in front. The Islanders did that. They had practiced the day before about tips in the slot. Lining up for the defense to take shots at tips. Brock Nelson tips home the Adam Pelech shot. Romanov's laser slap shot. Palmieri gets in the shooting lane and tips it. So they worked on that, and it worked. Yeah. And Wah was really happy about that. The blowing the lead late in the game, I think it was Mayfield and Dobson that were out there. And then Dobson makes a mistake, tries to dish the puck to the corner and right to Bratt at the back post.
Right.
And you wonder about Dobson still, just with the struggles. And I know we'll get to that a little bit later. But it wasn't as if the Devils were just pushing. There were chances to clear that puck, and it doesn't happen. And it's just, again, you talk about in overtime. I think Barzal and Bone needed that. That was.
Oh yeah.
You start overtime. You're looking for those guys to do something. We talked. Barzal has no 5-on-5 points yet this year. Horvat's got a couple, but Horvat after the game said, it felt so good. He agreed to, and I think you're watching, like, that line's working hard. They're trying to get things done. It's just not fun. They're playing really well defensively, which is a positive. If you're not going to score, you don't want to be allowing goals.
For sure.
Them to connect, and also for Sorokin too. He hasn't gotten much support at all. And that had to be a backbreaker. But I asked him after the game how good it felt to watch that go, and he goes, "It's like Christmas morning." So
okay,
people made jokes like, "Oh, because it only happens once a year," things like that. But
nice.
But yeah, Sorokin's always a great quote.
Well, to bounce off of that, if you really want to stretch Armstrong or reach out here for positives in these, blown leads that are leading to overtime, these are games that they were losing last year.
Right.
They would have lost that shootout last week, the previous week. They would have lost this game against the Devils, right? And you would have just been like, okay, here's another game where the Islanders are settling for another loser point. One of 16 to come.
Hey, they
if you look at last year, right? For sure, but at least they're getting the second point in these situations. Now, obviously, you'd rather see them close things out in regulation, not give up the tying goal, and, move on and say, thanks for coming, Devils, but no points for you. Unfortunately, not the case. At least they're getting that second point. So if you want to consider it a baby step in the right direction, sure, but it's definitely grasping at straws.
Yeah, I think we should do the experience points now because my experience points goes in this game.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
so
whatever you want to do, buddy.
Well, let's do it.
It's your show.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Romanov obviously had a fantastic game, and we'll go get him later in the show. He gets crushed, gets up, crushes Jack Hughes, then gets an assist, but first fight of the year belongs to Scott Mayfield. Last time Scott Mayfield fought, it was against the Rangers in preseason, and he broke Lindgren's jaw.
Right.
This was a fight, with Mayfield stepping up, fighting McDermott, who had hit Romanov. So you love to see that because a couple years ago, even last year, Islanders get pushed around and you don't have an answer. And so for Scott, who, by the way, he's probably been their second best defenseman this year. I would say Romanov's been their best.
Much better this year.
He's blocking shots. He looks not that he's flying around out there, but he looks definitely more confident. And then
he does look more mobile.
He does, yeah. And then with Martin, he's back now, but who is going to step up and be that fighter? I know people are going to say, well, Martin hasn't fought in years. He wasn't your true enforcer. Sure, but him or Pajot or Clutter getting in people's faces and telling them, hey, you're not going to push us around. Mayfield did a great thing there to step up and fight, defend his teammate, and Romanov said thanks, Maisie, after the game, because it means a lot to these guys.
And, now that you bring back up the Martin signing, I have to say I'm a little surprised by seeing that. I didn't see that coming. I thought maybe this was a situation where they were just going to kind of have him stick around so that there was a way to have him in the locker room, around the boys, all that good stuff, but not necessarily give him a contract, especially given the how tight they are up against the cap as it is. Now, obviously, Duclair getting hurt changes things, the LTIR, all that stuff. But the fact that they signed him this soon was a little surprising to me. Do you think that's a direct result of the Duclair injury, or do you think this might have been something that was coming down the pike either way?
Per Lou, it was a direct result of the Duclair injury.
Well, there you have it.
By exact verbiage from there. So the one thing, I'll go back to the roster moves there, is once Duclair comes back, people are going to have to go on waivers. Probably two people. And Lou was asked about that, and he said, pretty much it's an open trial for someone to win a job. That's why Engvall's back up. He said we've been rotating.
Engvall's back,
We've been rotating. He goes, we've been rotating the bottom six. We need someone that could be there stable every night. And, well, he got a 7-year deal, so that's the hope. And and also, too, everyone that says he has no talent, of course he has NHL talent. There's no question that he is an NHL player and could play a middle six role. People that say that are just, they want to hate Engvall, which I get. He hasn't been good enough. It's the consistency. Why? Can't have someone
the motivation. It's the effort. I mean, I think that's been more the question than anything else.
And I do agree that an NHL player should not have to be pushed and given wake-up calls.
For sure.
And Lou was asked, was it a wake-up call? Absolutely a wake-up call. They were not happy with his performance.
So who loses 57 points for losing that Patreon face-off then? Yeah.
Do I have to leave?
I don't think you have to leave. I need you for the rest of the show. I can't really carry it on my own. I'll admit that on the air. But
Your ego just exploded.
But I think we have to acknowledge the fact that that's a straight up L for you, pal.
I'll take it, man. I don't know.
Minus 300 experience
points.
Well,
if Duclair doesn't get hurt, it doesn't happen.
We don't know that.
That's true.
Guess we'll never know. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah. So going back to the who's going to get waived, he said that Martin knows his role. He's not going to play every night. That's not so. Like, I don't think Martin knows his role, that he's going to be in and out of the lineup. He's here for the room. That's why they signed him on and off the ice. I'm telling you right now, he is not getting waived. It's just not happening. He's not going to be one of those guys.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think it's a little pressure on Martin in general, because Martin's a guy that said that I have to earn my playing time. So if he doesn't play well before Duclair comes back, and they have to waive a guy like Wahlstrom or a guy, I don't think,
or maybe Engvall goes back down.
But see, that was going to get to my next point, is that Lou had said, we know that he's an NHL player. We have to see it every night. We don't want to be rotating the bottom. Like, he's pretty much, Lou said he has to be the guy. That's what I got from that. So I don't think he would go on waivers. But we've talked about, Wahlstrom, seems to keep surviving every chance to get rid of him. He makes it. He stays. So it's interesting what's going to happen. But Lou's not wrong. This is an open tryout for those guys. The reason that Engvall's back up outside of the cap situation is that no one won the job. Wahlstrom got the job. Same way Martin's here. Wahlstrom got the chance to win the fourth line role, didn't. Gaudreau really didn't get the chance, but he could have had a good game. His one game that he played, he could have had a good game, and then maybe he stays in the lineup for a game 2 and builds on that. He doesn't. Foodie comes up. Like I said, I don't think it's his fault we didn't see his speed, but if he has a really good game and showcase that speed, he might stay up. So all these players that got the chances failed, and that's why Martin gets it. If everyone outplayed Martin or some guy outplayed him, Martin's not getting a contract. It's the fact that we know what Martin can bring. At least, maybe he's not the player he once was, but we know what his game is. There's no question mark. Like, Wahlstrom was a major question mark on the fourth line.
Absolutely.
Foodie was a question mark. Gaudreau was a question mark. Martin's going to play 7 to 8 minutes. He's going to try to be physical. He's not going to get up the ice. He's going to get on the forecheck a little bit. And if he has to fight, so be. Like, that's the biggest non-question mark on that bottom line right now.
Yeah, they just have to make sure he's not a
liability.
A liability on the defensive side of things, where he's a little slower to pucks these days, and that creates a situation where the Islanders are getting hemmed in their own zone, whatever the case, because we've seen that happen in recent years, just because of the fact that he's up there in age now and he's lost a little foot speed and whatnot. So hopefully within those 7-8 minutes we don't see too much of that. But I was caught a little off guard by it, but it is what it is. He's back.
By the way, 2,400 points for Scott Mayfield.
2,400. Oh, nice, like his number.
Yeah,
that's cute. Well, we still have to talk about the Florida game, so let's talk about the big collapse.
Do you want to or not?
It's kind of the part of the job.
Yeah.
So Saturday comes and it starts off nice. How many times have we said that? In the past?
I think it was an incredible start.
Starts off real nice.
Yeah.
3-0 lead for the Islanders in the first period, and then as we've seen in recent history, the opposition chips away at that lead. They eventually tie the game and ultimately take over the game to win the game 6-3. The Florida Panthers, reigning Stanley Cup champions.
Minus
and a very noticeable factor in the game was also one Mr. Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah.
In multiple ways.
Well, first off, Cholowski, first goal with the Islanders. That was a good one. Palms, Nelson getting in. I mean, Spencer Knight allowed 3 goals on the first 7 shots. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've talked a lot about a goalie that starts off really struggling in a game, and then you have to pepper the guy with shots, and the Islanders didn't do that, which allowed for Spencer Knight to shake it off. I asked Maurice about that after the game, and he said, it was a great bounce back from him. Not that every goal was his fault. Maybe there's a couple he wants to save. Maybe Bobrovsky saves them all. But Spencer Knight rebounded. The team backed him up, scored some goals. You mentioned Tkachuk. So Tkachuk's first goal, for guys that didn't watch it, on Twitter it was circulating.
Gals.
What?
For guys and gals that didn't watch
and gals.
Yeah.
Guys to me is everyone. Like,
okay.
Anyway, the overhead shot of Tkachuk on his first goal showed a lot of things that were a major issue. You had Tkachuk go push Varlamov, essentially. Then it sounded like maybe Varlamov put his stick out, whatever you want to say. Tkachuk clearly knocks a stick out of Varlamov's hand. You see Varlamov go like this.
Right.
Tkachuk comes around the net, cross-checks Varlamov.
Yeah.
So Varlamov without a stick, puck goes off the post, comes behind him, Tkachuk scores, and then as Tkachuk celebrates, he then punches Varlamov in the back of the head. And
nice guy.
There's 2 ways to look at this. How on earth does the ref miss that? That's right. It's not like the play was on the other end of the ice and this happened.
Multiple things. Not
Number
just the
2,
one. Yeah.
There's actually 3 things. Number 2, there's defensemen there, and he gets behind them, and they don't pressure him. And there's no fight after, and there's no fight the rest of the game with Tkachuk.
Yes, and that falls on the rest of the New York Islanders.
And I don't have an issue, like we talked about it before.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, clearly Mayfield, and I forgot who was out there with him, maybe it was Cholowski, are not watching Tkachuk. They're watching the play in front of them, which led to the goal.
Right.
Puck watching. But in the moment, they're not going to see it. However, whether it's the next shift, going to the bench to watch it, or the intermission, especially Wah being a goalie, you have to come out there and you have to challenge him to fight. And I'm not putting the onus only on Matt Martin, but Matt just signed a contract. He's there. He's got limited playing time. Forget Tkachuk maybe Tkachuk doesn't even fight. Mm-hmm. Make him say no to a fight.
Sure.
At that point in the game, again, it was the Florida clearly had momentum, but you got to go take a shot at him. You have to make a point that says, we're not going to allow you to do that. Like I said, in the moment, they didn't know what happened probably. Bang, bang. But you go into the intermission in the room and you're looking and going, wow, he cross-checked Varlamov, hit him in the head, and we have to respond for Varlamov, like we saw Mayfield fight McDermott.
Listen,
you have to see that.
Golden rule as far as your goalie goes is if anybody goes after your goalie, you got to protect him, whether it's in the moment, if you happen to notice it, or you got to make sure that somebody answers the bell later. The fact that nobody answered the bell after that is a little disturbing to see that there was nobody on the Islanders willing to step up to do that, or this is like a very benefit of the doubt sort of notion here, unless they made a conscious decision to let it go, to maybe avoid an instigator penalty, whatever the case may be, because they wanted to hang on to the lead. But you can also support the arm, like, hey, they're already up a couple goals. Like, let's make sure this guy understands that he's not going to get away with that down the road. Whatever the case may be. But 9.5 times out of 10, you got to do something to defend your goaltender. And
I'm not saying Tkachuk, one, would have fought, or two, if he got hit around the next couple of minutes, that he would be quiet and not hit. But Tkachuk scores another big goal in this game.
Right.
And for a fact, he thought that he was in their heads. Like he had a lot. First off, he walked down a lane, and I asked him about that. I said, "What do you see?" He goes, "I cycled, and a lane opened up, and I took it."
Yeah.
You have to hound this guy, slash him. Of course, not every ref's going to call every slash. You hacked all game. You have to make his life as uncomfortable as possible the rest of that game, and let someone else beat you. You can't let him beat you. And I thought, again, the refs don't understand how you kind of missed it. I know it's not a challengeable play because it didn't interfere on the goal, but there was that's egregious from everyone involved. Listen. And I think there should have been an answer for it. And Tkachuk clearly played a huge role in this game, 2 goals and 1 assist. And that was a big goal to make it 3-2. And the tide changed, I think, with the Reinhart goal at the end of the first. You close that out. Mm-hmm. You have all the momentum going to the second. Mm-hmm. And Tkachuk said, we didn't have a great first period at all. Goal late really changed, and we came out on fire in the second. I just think they have to do something in that moment to show them that you are not going to get away with that.
Yeah, I think that's minus 1,800 experience points for the rest of the Islanders roster for not sticking up for the goaltender.
And goals number.
It's a level down, yeah. That's a leveling down for me. So we got to keep this show moving along. So that will do it for Experience Points, presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Unplug your game and raise your experience at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game, from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game. And now we're going to go to break. So, folks, I want to thank you all for tuning in here to Hockey Night in New York. We'll be right back.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is Hockey Night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest. And Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, folks. Welcome back to Hockey Night in New York. And the train does roll on right into Center Station Bar and Grill in Rockville Center. They are sponsoring this wonderful segment known as What's on Tap. And Stefan, once again, the Islanders have a plethora of games coming up on the schedule. Yeah, I got it from a little movie called The Three Amigos that came out before you were born.
Never heard
but
of
it's
it.
an all-time classic. You should check it out.
Does that mean Three Friends?
Steve Martin. The Three Friends. The movie is called The Three Friends.
Wait, it's not called
That's right.
Trace Amigos?
It's called The Three Amigos, Stefan. The Three Friends.
Okay.
That's what it's called.
That's like my life.
Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Chevy Chase. Great stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, you'll learn a lot.
Okay.
You'll learn a lot. All right, so what's on tap? Tuesday night, the Anaheim Ducks come into town for a rare 7 p.m. tilt at UBS Arena. Why 7?
It's a great question, man. I have no idea. Maybe it's because of national TV or something. I don't know. I could be lying. I have no idea.
Okay, fair enough. That's not important. But the Anaheim Ducks are coming to town, and they will be playing the Islanders that night. This is a game the Islanders have to win. They got to bounce back after that loss Saturday night against the Florida Panthers. This is a team struggling out west there. They have some upcoming young stars, but they haven't put it together yet. This should be a win.
Their jerseys are sick, though.
Yo, California is the best dressed state in the National Hockey League, hands down.
I love these. Might be my favorite jerseys I've ever
Kings,
seen.
Ducks, Sharks, beautiful.
Yeah, the Sharks, by the way, have lost 9 straight games to start the year. I think it's back-to-back years they've done that.
It's not in the jerseys, obviously.
It's bad. But the Ducks, Jake the Snake, are playing right now. They're playing the Devils, right? They're losing 2-1. The Ducks are losing?
Okay.
Yeah, the Ducks aren't good, but you know what it means?
They're not. Yeah.
It means Ross Johnson comes back to town.
Yeah, there you go.
It means Brent Thompson comes back to town.
Right.
Yeah, so...
that's
Ross,
it, just 2.
Yeah, there's another couple, too. Cronin.
Greg Cronin.
Ross Johnson, by the way, is the best guy to talk to. He's awesome. Last time the Ducks were in town, Pajot got into it with Ross Johnson during a scrum, and after the game, I brought it up, and he goes, "Yeah, I have to have a stern talking to with Pajot."
Nice.
It was like, nice. But no, I mean, listen, the Ducks have been bad. These are one of the games you want to see the Islanders at 5-on-5, particularly that top line. Mm-hmm. Whoever's going to play on the wing with Horvat and Barzal, I think it'll still be Holmstrom. You have to see a dominant. Barzal needs to take over. No 5-on-5 points.
I like that.
This year, you got to leave your mark. These are the games on the schedule where you think, we played a lot of tight games. Blow a team out. Then again, last time when the Sharks were in the building last year, they got blown. They had a lead and they blew it. And then what was it, 7-3 final? By the way, Duclair played really well in that game.
Yeah, he did. He did.
But it's one of these games where you take a 3-0 lead. That's got to be like 6-0 at the end of the second. It can't be 3-3. You have to keep your foot on the gas.
I'll take 4-2.
Whatever. It just can't be it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Win's a win, but it's one of those games where you need to make it a confidence boosting win, not a barely getting by win.
Yeah, or we're not going to allow, games like Saturday to domino into something worse. Like, you have to bounce back against a team like the Ducks and get a win. And then you look at the rest of the week. Oh, another highly available 2 points there against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Wednesday night, 7 o'clock. They go into Columbus. Now, obviously, you have the tragedy there. We talked about that in the show. It's awful. They're still dealing with that. But, just looking at the team on paper, this is a team that the New York Islanders have to be able to go into Columbus and win. Now, I know they've rattled off a few wins, surprising wins earlier in the season here. But, again, Islanders got to go in there, get 2 points in Columbus.
Prove to the NHL, not that you have to prove it to the NHL, you got to prove to yourself. Prove to yourself that you're a good team that just haven't executed the way you've liked. Because if you lose to the Ducks and you lose to Columbus, you are what your record says you are. And right now the Islanders are pretty much 500. They
are exactly.
They've gone win, loss, win. Well, they lost the opener, so loss, win, loss, win. They've alternated. But you have to go in there and show Columbus that we are a much better team than you. Columbus is going to be in the basement of the Metro. They're not a good team, and you have to show them that they're a bad team. And you just have to do it. And there's no excuses where you can't get goal lead. First off, Columbus never goalies anyone. But it's just, this is a very bad team.
They might goalie the Islanders.
It's a very bad team, and the Islanders have to prove that we are a much better team than you, and we're going to build on hopefully a Ducks win. And then, Islander win over the Ducks, and now you have points. Because we just looked this past week, Devils and Florida. That was a tough ending to that week, and they got a win and a loss.
Right.
Now you come back, and you're being given 2 quick games to start the week, and then to the third game, another winnable game.
Yeah, absolutely. They go into Buffalo on Friday night at 7 o'clock. Tougher competition with Buffalo, but still a team the Islanders.
But
correct. But still a team that the Islanders should beat. So again, another 2 possible points here. Again, some more young stars here. Tage Thompson, obviously, over there. But a team that the Islanders should be able to take care of in 60 minutes, you'd like to think.
This is a Buffalo's team that you have Dahlin fighting with people at practice. You have a lot of pressure from Buffalo. Lindy Ruff in his second stint with the team.
Right.
It's just Cousins. I don't think Dylan Cousins has been terrible. And another situation where you go in. I mean, the last time the Islanders have gone to Buffalo, it has not been good. I remember, I don't know if it was last year or before, where overtime starts and a pass through 2 zones, it would have been a breakaway goal and they lose that game. It's been a situation where they go to Buffalo and it's really tough for them to win. But if you win the first 2 games of the week, what a way to close out the week by going for a sweep and getting 6 points. That's huge. This is a week where the NHL gods or the schedule makers, I guess they're gods, are saying, hey, we made it tough a little bit to start. Here are 3 winnable games. You could take 6 points. And if they go this week and they go 3-0-0, everyone is feeling much better about where they're at. And they build on that and moving forward. Confidence is such a big thing.
Well, Stefen, I'm going to add a 4th game to the list.
You should.
I am. That's Sunday.
So that is part of the week.
November 3rd. Correct. Yeah. Yes. The Islanders go into the Garden to play the Strangers at 1 o'clock. That is obviously going to be the toughest one on the schedule. But as we all know, an Islander-Ranger game, anything could happen. And most importantly, we're throwing a viewing party for that game at Center Station in Rockville Center. Now, Stefen will be covering the game at the Garden, but little old friend will be covering for Stefen on Sunday. Christian Arnold coming back to do a little hot. Yes, the forgotten man, Christian Arnold, coming back to co-host Hockey Night in New York with myself at Center Station in Rockville Center. That is going to be a good time. Hopefully, he still watches hockey or knows what it is.
Yeah, we talked about hockey the other day. Christian's the best. This will be fun for him. You guys have a good time. Give him a nice hug for me.
Yeah, you're going to call in, right?
Yeah, I'll call in. I don't want to talk to him, though. Only you.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah, so that's going to be a good time. Next Sunday, 1 o'clock, we'll do a 12 o'clock pregame show over there. If you've been to one before, then you know we always have a good time. We have the prizes, the raffles. It's always a good time, always a good laugh. And it's usually a better time when the Islanders win. They didn't do that last time we had an Islander-Ranger game viewing party, so maybe this is where they turn the tide. And just to remind you, we have another one coming up on the 16th. The Seattle Kraken will be hosting the Islanders, and the Islanders will be playing them at 4 p.m., another viewing party at Center Station, and that will be co-hosted by none other than Michael Carver, former host of Islanders. Geez, my God, I forgot the name of the flipping podcast. No, he's going to kill me. He's my cousin, so it's fine. I'll see podcast.
You should know. I should not be the one.
You know, I almost said Islanders point blank, but that would have been very incorrect. But yes, I'll see podcast. Mikey Carver going to be coming in to do the viewing party with me as well. So
I'll be calling in. I'll be on that trip. So I'll be on the Seattle Vancouver.
2 big bashes going on at Center Station, Rockville Center. So that will do it for What's on Tap, presented by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch great food, drinks, and Isles games and live events at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center. And now we're going to talk about some heroes. That's right, folks. It's time for Hero of the Week. Christian, would you...
I'm done. Done. Absolutely.
Minus 8,000 bonus points for me.
I'll be honest. I've been called worse.
That's probably true. Yeah,
not
probably.
By much, but
so Stefen, would you like to go first?
Who? Me?
Stefan.
You talking to me?
Stefan.
Yeah, I would love to go first. You put the camera on me only, please. I want him off the camera. Alexander Romanov is my hero. Like I said before, he's been their best defenseman all year. He's getting in on the rush. He's doing everything he's got to do. He gets crushed by McDermott. Helmet comes flying off. It was a huge hit. Legal. It was legal. Huge hit. Helmets come off. He goes to the bench. He comes back his next shift and absolutely crushes Jack Hughes, then earns an assist. And we found out after the game that they tried to give him stitches in between periods, and he said no. He's just an absolute savage. And
he's a tough man.
After the game, Patrick Roy was asked about Romanov, and this is what he had to say.
He got hit in the head by McDermott, but I mean, what I appreciate about him is he kept his focus. He kept his focus, and he made a super nice play. We talked about it before the game. He follows the rush. It's exactly how we scored that one. I think he took a nice shot from the blue line, tip on Pomsey's stick. But, I mean, because he was into the rush, he used his speed. But he was a beast out there. I mean, played so well defensively. I mean, and he was into the rush, moving, getting the puck out of the zone. I thought he had a strong game.
Yeah, so like I said, Romanov's been the defenseman that the Islanders hope when they trade for him. A couple years ago, first year he was maybe chasing hits too much, coming out of position, but right now he's been their most stable defenseman. He's carrying that back, and we saw last night with him out of the lineup with an upper body injury. By the way, Lou said not a concussion. They just want to make sure that he's good. He's been unreal. So I think your name's Sean.
That's right, Tony.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep mine short and sweet just because we got to get to questions brewing soon. But Bo Horvat, easy peasy, overtime winner, beautiful goal. And I think that's all we need to say about that. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about Isles Fix, and then we'll go to the Snake Den. So, folks, Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at ilesfix.substack.com. And now it's time to mosey on over to the Snake Den.
Welcome to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake Redonis.
That's right, folks. Welcome to the Snake Den. Jake the Snake Redonis, how we doing tonight, pal?
I'm doing good. I actually can't believe you got my name right.
That's fair. It's been a rough one for me.
It's okay. It happens. But no, doing good. Another show. Happy to be here.
Yes, that's great. So, have you recovered from the Mets loss?
Yes, I think I'm past it, and I'm sorry, close your ears, Yankees fans, but them getting handled by the Dodgers right now is also making me a little bit happy.
Oh,
so,
I see.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to put it out there. But,
What's your take? What's your take?
Well, you know what? It's funny that you brought up the Mets because my take is on Ilya Sorokin and kind of alluding him to a former Met.
Okay.
You may know him, Jacob deGrom. So,
Sure.
Jacob deGrom, dominant pitcher for the New York Mets, won 2 Cy Young Awards. Back-to-back years. The first year he won 10 games. The second year he won 11. That's not much in baseball standards right there.
Yeah, I have to take your word for it there. Yeah.
Yep. So essentially what I'm getting to here is that is Ilya Sorokin the Jacob deGrom of the Islanders, because he's putting up Vezina caliber numbers.
Right.
Having maybe his best year yet.
Best start of his career.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's doing everything that he can possibly do to help this team win. And unfortunately, the team's not being so genuine back to him. So it reminds me a lot of the times Jacob deGrom was a Met, because he was the most dominant pitcher in the league, where right now Sorokin's playing like maybe the most dominant goalie in the league, but the team's just simply not getting it done. So
No run support.
No run support for Ilya Sorokin.
Yes, man. Appreciate that.
But I have faith that they'll turn it around. You got to get the guy some wins. I mean, it's not a good feeling when you're putting everything on the line like that and doing your job day in and day out, and your guys don't have your back.
That's how I feel here every night at Hockey Night New York, so I get it.
You know the UC Soros commercial where he goes, no goals?
Yes.
My dad will appreciate that one. He loves that. That commercial is the best commercial, but yeah, the Islanders giving him no goals of support.
Yeah.
He stopped 103 of the first 110 shots he's faced this year. 1.74 goals against, 936. He's been unreal. We talked about back surgery. The guy, you were expecting him maybe a slow start. Absolutely not. He's been incredible. Jake, that's probably your best take yet.
Thank you.
Not the hating the Yankees. That's
I'm sorry. Yeah, we could
cut that part out.
Cut that part out. But yeah, right now I will say that I do think Ilya Sorokin is going to take home some hardware this year with the Vezina.
That's a hot one. That's a hot take from Jake. All right, well, we'll see. But now it's time to check in with Ed and Jay over at Questions Brewing. Come on!
It's time for
Questions Brewing.
So go ahead.
You know, I wanted to play that again.
Oh, yeah?
It faded out, and it was too soon. I really like when the
He got
the
flustered.
Snake
You
Den
got his
music.
name right. So.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Well,
my name
no,
got
it's
right.
good. I started a trend here, so I had 3
Trend?
screw-ups. And
Someone say trend?
I did say trend, and Ed, you're following suit, so that's great.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's great.
we got a fun little addition here, don't we, Ed?
Yes, we do. We have Jack in the house.
That's right.
our
Jack in
very
the box.
first Patreon guest.
I'm happy to be here right now.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you guys for
Yes,
having me.
Thanks for coming.
My question was, I know, Stefan, you mentioned your top defenseman was Romanov, second Scott Mayfield. How do you guys feel about Pelech and Pollock?
Yeah.
I know they said they want to get their swagger back.
Right.
Are you feeling it's on the way? Are they better than they were last year? Are they earning their contract? Just want your opinion.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think to start the year, they were terrible. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah,
They were
not
struggling. I think against the Devils, I think that was their best game of the year. I just think maybe it'll take time. Maybe the system still with, they were injured a lot under
Right.
Watt, just things like that. But yeah, I don't think making their money is tough because cap changes everything like that. But they just need them to be. They don't have to get their swagger back, really. They don't have to be an elite defense pairing. They have to complement the Romanov and Dobson pairing, but just be a reliable option for Watt every single night. I think they're getting better. I think they're getting their legs. And remember, a lot last year with so many injuries, they weren't playing together a lot. So I don't think they're there yet. I think if the Islanders want to make the playoffs, they have to be. But I do think it's promising that they played really well against the Devils. I thought that was their best game by far. Pelech was skating the puck up. He was locking down defensively. So I think there may be a turning point for them this year. But yeah, like you mentioned, they have to be better if the Islanders want to do that. That's a great point.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of your comments, I have noticed that Pelech's been a little more mobile back there with the puck, which is a good sign. And I guess when you look at their body of work in recent years under Lane, under Patrick Waugh, you wonder, was their heyday a product of Barry Trotz's system and that their game kind of fit that mold and that's why they had so much success, or was it them? And we have to find out now if it is them or not, if they can kind of get their act together under Patrick Waugh. As you said, they've improved. Will they become the top unit that they had been in the past? I mean, they haven't given us much reason to believe that at the moment. But like you said, maybe they don't need to be, and maybe there's still just some lingering issues from some of those injuries. These are guys who've missed a lot of games, and sometimes
they've logged a lot of minutes.
Yes, and sometimes that takes a longer toll. So, as Steph and I like to do, give long-winded answers here on Hockey Night in New York. I think I'm okay with where they're at right now, but I would like to see more.
Thanks so much for the question.
Yeah,
man.
appreciate that.
Thanks for coming down.
And now on to the angry chat room.
Well, we're gonna blow by that because this just in from Johnny Lazarus.
Hey, how we doing, bud?
Johnny Lazarus in chat. Yes, Johnny with no H, and that's how you know it's the real Johnny. I've seen Islander fans turning on Noah Dobson. What's going on with him?
Funny, we were actually going to talk about that a little later, but yeah, I think it has to be acknowledged that he has been struggling on the defensive side of the game. He's still bringing the offense, and I've actually brought him up myself, saying this is a guy we need to see more out of, and it's a little concerning because how many chances does he get to really show some improvement in that regard? So I'm concerned. Does he still have room to grow? Absolutely, but I think that's something that the Islanders have to keep an eye on.
And we've talked about it too. Is his time on ice? They need him to produce offensively, but trust is a big thing. And Romanov was hurt. So Mayfield and Dobson being out there in the final minute 29, minute 30, that's probably where Romanov would have been. But they need Dobson to not even be good defensively, just
acceptable,
just reliable enough where you're not putting that, like, I'm not going to say he's a liability because he does bring a lot. But it's every year we're talking about his defense, and we need to see taking steps, and he's in a contract year. Now you're hesitant. Well, if we're going to give him 8x8 or 8.25 by 8, you want to hope you're rewarding him for not his offense, his defense. And he's struggled, and he knows he's struggled. It's not like he thinks he's a elite defender. And I think Romanov helps because Romanov's been such a good defender. But when Romanov jumps up on the rush and things like that happen, Dobson just has to be able to be a rock back there enough where he's not making the rookie mistakes or getting nervous with the puck on his stick.
The problem that I'm seeing is it's decision-making.
Right.
These are moments that he's having that are leading the goals against, sometimes back-breaking goals against, where if he had just made a better decision, they could have had a better outcome. And I think that's what makes it, to me, a bigger concern because it's not the result of a play. It's more him actually deciding to make the high-risk play or maybe not make the proper pass or, not the safe chip up the boards instead of trying to drive it through himself and stick handling, right? And can that be corrected? Can that be fixed with teaching? Yes. But I'm sure he's getting a lot of that already, and it's still not changing. So that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, there should be a concern for sure.
Yeah.
And next from not T-Boyle on Twitch, but Thomas Boyle on YouTube. Apparently, Twitch is having a little.
Twitch is twitching.
Twitch is freezing up a little bit, but it's fine everywhere else.
Well
so
done.
if you guys
Well
want to
done.
move on over to
Very
YouTube,
clever.
feel free. Speaking of Noah Dobson, do you see Dobson moving on from the Islanders?
Thomas? What? No. No. He's an RFA, so that's not happening. And two, I think he's going to get his 8x8. It's going to happen. It's just the NHL cap's going up. They need his offense, too. It's not like they don't. And whether you think he can quarterback a power play or not, or needs to be on a different spot, he's a key part to the Islanders making the playoffs. So, no, he's not going anywhere.
Okay.
Next question.
Next up from NZeb09.
Sufficient.
Why has Varlamov fallen off so much since being so good last year?
I don't want to say it's so early. I don't want to say fallen off. He struggled. There's no question about it. He's 3.72 goals against, 854 save. Look at the goals last night. The Samasevich wraparound, by the way, first NHL goal. Islanders love to do that. He looked really delayed. A lot of the goals, though, is they're not being defended. Like, they're coming in clear. But, yeah, he hasn't looked good at all. It doesn't help that Sorokin's looked the complete opposite level good. So, obviously, it makes Varlamov look worse. But he's a goalie that relies on positioning, not on reflexes. And I think the defense in front of him in the games that he's played hasn't been tremendous. He does want to stop a couple. Wah said it yesterday. I wouldn't say major drop-off. I would say give it till December, January, because you need more games under your belt. You need to see the Islanders playing better. But it is concerning because if he is going to struggle like this and Sorokin's going to play the way he's playing, it can't be an alternating of starts. The Islanders need to collect points, especially against the bad teams too, like the Ducks. It's not that, let's get Varlamov to start. You need to win those games, so Sorokin should be playing as much as possible.
What did you think about the Islanders deciding to start Varlamov versus Florida as opposed to New Jersey?
Yeah, so I went back and looked at all the back-to-backs under Wah, and he went with Varlamov first for all of them. That being said, Sorokin was struggling, but he went with Varlamov for every first leg. But the rule of thumb is you play your best goalie in the game that you think you have the best chance of winning.
Okay.
And you let the backup go against Florida. So that's how I viewed that.
From Alex Layway 9, do you think there's actually a problem between Lou and Watt, or is the media just making something out of nothing?
Well, I do want to say, when we say the media, I mean, I'm biased here. New York media, just want to throw it out there, all of us on the beat are not the ones that spread whatever this turmoil is going on. This was a random Twitter account that has a following, but anonymous, sharing this stuff. So, I don't think it's the media in terms of us, because all we did was share what Lou said, and all we did was share what Wah said. And you could take what you want from that and read between the lines, things like that. But in terms of media spreading it, one account spread that happened, there was an altercation. That was not us. So I don't think the media is doing anything. One person is, and like Twitter, it catches on like wildfire. So
yeah, and it's up to the viewer or the listener to take those quotes that you guys are reporting and make your own decisions for yourself, right? And you can speculate all you want.
I do think Wah and Lou communicate every day. Obviously, Wah has certain players that he probably likes more than others, and Lou has a job to do as the GM. And yeah, there's probably risk, but also, like, I don't know if this is necessarily a completely bad thing. I think you don't want to see a coach just blindly go with what a GM says. You don't want a GM to just give the coach the reins for everything. So maybe there's the good that comes out of maybe them working things out, but I don't think it's a situation where, like, Lou's going to fire Wah and Wah's going to walk out. Like, I don't think that at all.
Okay.
Gotcha. Sorry, just starting the old Zoom meeting here for our guests that week. I think we should do one more.
One more,
then,
sure.
We'll break for Ethan.
Okay.
We'll do another one from NZAB09 here. The Isles preach team and good locker room. Why do I care if they get along? I want them to win, and they haven't won with feel-good Isles.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. A team that does not get along is not going to win hockey games either. You need chemistry. If everyone hates each other and no one wants to pass to each other and people are hogging in and things like that, like, you're not going to win that way either. The teams that win are the teams that become family.
You got to have unity.
First off, the Dynasty Islanders. They didn't hate each other. They were all best of friends.
Right.
Except Billy Smith, who wanted to take everyone's head off all the time. But then you have the Florida Panthers. They were like a family. Kyle Oposo talked about how much they brought him in and was like, the locker room matters when they don't win, of course, but it's not like if the Islanders all hated each other, they'd win games. So
there's a difference between having everybody, paddling in the same direction and getting complacent. Right, you can still get the message where everybody has to work hard, play hard, and have a good time while not neglecting your duties on the ice.
And also, like, talking to the guys in the room, no one's set, like, when they win against the Devils or they blow a lead and then win, like the 9-round shootout against Montreal, nobody was happy.
Right.
Like, it wasn't like, yeah, we're good, like, we got it. It was, we're glad we got the win, but that was unacceptable. So I think, you got to have a family aspect to this. They got to be close, because if they're not close, they're disconnected, and you don't win games like that.
For sure. Well, we do have Ethan Sears hanging out in the digital green room, so we got to wrap up Questions Brewing. So we want to thank Jack over here for joining us here with the Patreon question for sure. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, Ethan Sears will be joining us.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Did you have a nice break? Well, it's time to get back on the couch for more Islanders therapy on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching Hockey Night in New York, and joining us from the New York Post is Mr. Ethan Sears. Ethan, welcome back to the program. How you been, man?
I've been great. Thanks so much for having me. Sean Stefen, how are you guys?
Absolutely, sir. We are doing well as you can be after a rough loss last night to the Florida Panthers. But let's start talking about just maybe at the top here, the roster moves. You obviously have Matt Martin getting a contract here. Pierre Engvall comes back up. Foudy gets moved back down.
Foudy.
Yes, Foudy. What do you make of all the hustle and bustle behind the scenes with the roster moves?
Yeah, well, I mean, it felt like kind of a logical thing to do once we knew that Duclair was going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, right? You know, put him on LTIR. It gives you the space to bring up these guys, to sign Martin. You know, to my mind, it kind of just gives Patrick Waugh a few more options to sort through, because you look at the bottom six and the fourth line in particular, and really nobody has kind of grabbed onto those roles. You know, we've seen, I think, 3-4 different guys on that fourth line already, just a handful of games into the season. And Waugh is clearly just looking for somebody. And now there's 3 more guys, you know, Matt Martin, Pierre Engvall, and Hudson Fasching, who can be in that mix and potentially grab it. So from that end, it makes sense to me.
And then, Pierre Engvall, obviously this is a guy that, wake-up call, I think you're the one that asked the question to Lou yesterday just about it. And one, what do you make of his role going forward? And do you think he's going to get a leash here to be in the lineup every night now that he's up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that, you know, this is a guy whose profile is not really to be a bottom six player, let alone a fourth line player. And Lou has said that, and I could be wrong, but I think Patrick has said similar as well. And, you know, last night he's up and he's on the fourth line. So to me, that kind of says, all right, well, he's up here, but he's still going to have to earn it. This is not a situation where, you know, okay, Pierre Engvall, I guess, quote unquote, you know, served his time, spent a week in Bridgeport, and now, you know, he's going to be up here with kind of an unlimited leash and he's going to be in the lineup every night. I think he's going to have to sort of continue to prove again and again that he belongs here, that he, you know, that he deserves every minute he gets, that he deserves to be, you know, in the top six if that's where he's playing, or on the third line if that's where he's playing, or, you know, power play, whatever else. Because, I mean, Stefen, I'm sure you've mentioned that we talked to Patrick after the game, and I mean, he didn't sound particularly keen on Engvall or on Matt Martin. And, you know, I thought it was a fine game from Engvall. Overall, I guess, sort of forgettable. But, you know, I think they're going to, you know, want him to come in and prove that he got the message, and he's going to, you know, they want him to play like the player he can be, which is a pretty good player, you know, when you look at his skills and his physical profile, right? I mean, this is not a guy who should be in the AHL.
So just to piggyback off of that speculation, I mean, what do you think this means for a guy like Oliver Wahlstrom? I mean, you have Duclair who's hurt. Maybe that's an opportunity for Wahlstrom to get up into a higher spot in the lineup. Maybe it's not. But do you think this kind of leads to any, I suppose, reduced playing time for Wahlstrom, or maybe even being in danger of getting sent back down if the Islanders ultimately decide that they want Engvall to stay up, and especially now with Martin getting a contract?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that that's certainly a possibility, right? Once Duclair comes off LTIR, there's going to be some decisions to make, and Wahlstrom is one of those guys, right? I mean, he sat last night. That sort of tells you, right, he hadn't done anything in the games he'd gotten to make sure that he was in the lineup when these guys came up. So kind of like everybody else in that group, and that's, that's Fashing, that's Engvall, that's obviously Matt Martin. You know, it's going to be a meritocracy, and these guys are going to have to earn their playing time. It's, in theory, these are all like guys who have been in the NHL for a decent amount of time. So I don't think that there's necessarily a situation where, okay, you can send one of them down because maybe you're okay with exposing them to waivers, right? I mean, I don't think the Islanders want to lose Oliver Wahlstrom. Otherwise, he probably would have been gone over the summer. But at the same time, like, the salary cap is the salary cap, and you can only carry so many guys. And if it transpires that he's not in the lineup or isn't earning playing time and other guys are, and that squeeze comes, right, 2-3 weeks from now, whenever Duclair gets healthy, then that's going to be a decision that they're going to have to make.
Yeah, great points there. Going to goaltending, we had talked to Wah, and he pretty much said that his plan was to alternate Sorokin and Varlamov, keep them fresh. We obviously know that Sorokin, he made a point. He made it loud and clear that he thought Sorokin was tired last year, fatigued, and that played a part. But seeing of how good Sorokin's been and how Varlamov really has struggled, do you think maybe over these next handful of games, couple of weeks here, that they go 70-30, 80-20 with Sorokin?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a decision that they're going to have to think about, right? Because you alluded to it, and it really hasn't been the best start to the season for Semyon Varlamov. Last night wasn't his best game. I mean, Patrick even kind of said it wasn't his best game. So it's a little hard to go with a straight 50-50 when you have one guy who is significantly outplaying the other. At the same time, I do think Patrick is probably right that, overloading Sorokin over the last two seasons probably contributed to that drop off in play that we saw last season. And the Islanders have gone too far in the other direction before. So finding that balance, whatever it is it's going to be a hugely important thing early in the season. And Varlamov can make that a little easier by playing a little better, right? I mean, the closer they can get to 50-50 and without sacrificing any sort of quality, the Islanders would absolutely love that. But with Varlamov maybe struggling a little bit out of the gate, I mean, they probably do have to consider playing, if not 70-30, then maybe it's 60-40, maybe it's 2 out of every 3. So that's 65-35 roughly. They're going to have to consider going away from that 50-50 split.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Ethan. If Varlamov continues to pull up performances like that, you might have to start leaning on Sorokin a little bit and hope that maybe Varlamov gets it together with a little more rest down the road there in the season. But another fellow I want to talk about, we actually got a question here from our Patreon guest, Jack here, is what's the deal with Dobson? Does his offensive output outweigh the poor play in his own end? We were talking about it earlier before in one of the earlier segments here, but maybe you can just chime in on Dobson's play for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this has always been a little bit of the trade-off with Dobson, where, he's still a young guy. He's 24 years old. And you've sort of seen games and moments where he looks like a sort of, top pair, high-end guy who can play both ends. And then there's sort of games and moments and stretches where he looks like somebody who's still figuring it out a little bit on the defensive end and maybe relying a little bit on his offense. I don't think that is necessarily a sort of big picture referendum on what Noah Dobson is or isn't or will be or won't be in terms of his status as a totem for the organization or anything like that. I think it's more to do with, even though he's been around for 5 seasons now, still a 24-year-old player. He's still going to have nights where he looks like a 24-year-old player and he looks like somebody who's figuring it out. And you've seen that at the start of the year. And I don't mean that at all to make, excuses for him or to say that he, hasn't had tough moments so far. I think he would probably tell you the same thing, that he's had some tough moments. But I do think that there's maybe a little bit of grace to be had there, and knowing that, he's someone who's still young. He's somebody who's incredibly talented, who's still producing offensively. And, this is a little bit of what that development curve looks like, right? It's not always just a sort of straight linear line upwards.
Yeah, final two for me actually here. They're both related to Barzal, and obviously Barzal struggled at 5-on-5 out of the gate. I guess, what do you think has to happen to get Barzal going? And also with Simon Holmstrom on the top line, how long do you think Waugh keeps that leash when the results just aren't coming offensively for him?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest with you, the answer to one of those questions is pretty directly related to the other. And I mean, they need to figure out, as long as Anthony Duclair's not there, who can be on that line that is going to have some chemistry with Barzal and get that spark going. And maybe it's Simon Holmstrom, like you said. Patrick Waugh seems to have a little bit of a leash there. But this is kind of the same situation that we saw for a lot of last season, where they were rotating through guys on that left wing spot, where Anders Lee was there for a while, Simon Holmstrom was there for a while, Casey Cizikas was there in the playoffs, Brock Nelson was there for a while, and for the most part, Barzal had a great season last season. His chemistry with Horvat was great, but it makes a big difference when you have somebody there who's clicking versus not, especially when right now things maybe aren't quite 100% where they need to be for Barzal. So having other guys who can play off of him and elevate him is becomes important in those moments. And right now the Islanders seem to be, I guess, working through things, with that left wing spot, and they want Holmstrom to succeed there. Clearly, right now it hasn't really happened yet. And as for how much more rope that's going to be, I mean, the results are going to speak for themselves. This is a team that's struggling offensively right now. It's going to be hard to continue to have that if the results aren't coming and if they're not winning games. And they can stick with it for a little bit, but at the end of the day, there's only so long that can be, right? If it's not scoring, if it's not working well, if it looks like they're not on the same page.
Yeah, no doubt. And speaking of results, we talked about it at the top of the show here. These blown leads are happening again for this team in the early going under Patrick Waugh. Now, is this something that's going to be do you think it's going to be something more of a concern as the season goes on here? Maybe it's just a case of the team still finding their way after a full training camp of Patrick Waugh. Coincidental that they've given up some early third period leads here, or is this going to be a major concern for this team going forward?
Yeah, I mean, you can say, okay, it's been 8 games and that's a very small sample and maybe it's just a coincidence. And I'm not smart enough to say maybe it is or isn't, but if I was in charge of things, this would be a pretty big concern right now. I mean, it was a trend throughout last season. You've seen it a number of times this season. And look, it's the same kind of thing that we said a year ago, right? This is a veteran team. This is a team that, when it was playing at its peak, their MO was to lock down a lead. And now this same group of players is struggling to do that over a course of now 2 seasons. If you want to say that's a small sample, okay, I guess. But, that seems to me to be a little bit whistling past the problem.
So do you have any of your own theories on why this might be the case? Is it a team aging themselves out, getting a little older, losing a little foot speed, or is this a matter of systems change? And it worked when they were doing it well under Barry Trotz, and it's something they haven't been able to figure out under more recent coaches like Lambert and Waugh.
I don't really think it's systems, because it's now happening under two different coaches and 2 different systems.
Right.
Maybe there's something to, obviously this group has gotten a little older, and I also wonder if there's just a mental side to it, right? When this happens again and again and again, it's hard, at least as somebody who is, sitting there watching, right? It's hard not to think when they go up 3-0 and they give up that goal at the end of the first period. It's a little hard not to think,
Absolutely.
oh, they're about to, this game is really not over and there's a lot of time left and we've seen this before, right? And I mean, look, I certainly don't have the same kind of mentality as a professional athlete. That's one of many reasons why I'm not a professional athlete. But just on a human nature level, I would imagine that, no matter what they say to us, I would have to think that it's hard not for them to be thinking similarly, because this has happened so many times over the last, year and change, that it does begin to feel a little bit like, oh, here we go again. And right, I mean, the last two games, and the Devils game, they won, but I was sitting there during that third period thinking about, all right, well, I remember I think it was last December, right, on that same ice at Prudential Center, where similar situation, they're up late in the game, skating 5-on-6, and they give up a goal in the last few minutes, and then they give up another one before the end of regulation, and it's just like a gut punch, and it's the first thing that comes to mind. And I can't put myself in the minds of any of these guys, but it's really hard to think that just on a sort of base human level that their minds aren't going to that same place.
Yeah, for sure. And it's very concerning. Like you said, sure, you can make the 8-game sample size argument, but at the same time, there's history that goes back further than that. It's a trend, and you have a lot of the same personnel. I guess the real question now is Patrick Waugh going to be able to figure out to get this full roster of guys, because it doesn't matter who seems to be on the ice, right, to correct this issue and find a way to clamp down on it. And I guess the question becomes, is it a mental thing because it's just so in their heads at this point, or is it just a lack of, ability to close down games when you have the other team bearing down on you, getting a little more desperate for those extra goals? Like, I even remember last year with the empty net circumstances, where they were awful at defending leads with the empty net. So, after that word salad, Ethan, is there any hope for this team solving those third period blown leads?
Well, I mean, there's always hope, right? But sure. I mean, look, it's something that Patrick Waugh is going to have to look at, and I'm sure that he has probably spent his day today looking at it. When he came in, I remember sort of early on him talking about how he wanted to be like a football team with the lead that is running the ball and running out the clock and keeping possession. And the Islanders have never really quite been able to execute that since he's been the head coach. Even in that sort of whatever it was 10-game run at the end of last season, where I think they won maybe 8 of 10 and got into the playoffs. And there were a bunch of games where they had late leads and they closed it out. But it was pretty frequently, it was doing a lot of defending. It was Semyon Varlamov playing great in the third period, defending well at 5-on-6. They kind of figured out some of those issues, but they were never putting away teams. And I mean, that's just something you have to figure out how to do, because, not only is it just mentally draining to go through this every day, but or every game, but how you could count on probably two hands the number of wins the Islanders have had in the last year and a half, where they can sort of not worry in the third period. And not to say take the third period off, but be able to roll 4 lines, not really worry. They've got a 3-goal cushion and the other team is kind of looking ahead to the next game, right? And that adds up over an 82-game season. It's really hard to play 82 games where every single one of them is high stress in the last 2 minutes, and you're defending leads, and you're skating 5-on-6, and can't, struggling to score an empty net goal.
Yeah.
They're playing overtime all the time. Like, I mean, there's a physical wear element to that too. And maybe it's minor, because playing 82 games under any circumstances is not easy. But minor things matter over a long season.
Ethan, all great points.
Killed it.
I guess we'll have to see what happens over the next 74 games. But Ethan, always great to have you on the show, man. Thanks for joining us late here, and looking forward to next time.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
You got to take care.
Appreciate it.
All right, folks, that was the great Ethan Sears from the New York Post. Join us for a little late.
You got his name
edition.
right. And so you get his name right, and you just can't
There's
get
always
my
room
name
for
right.
improvement, Stefan.
I know. We'll wait till next week. You'll call me up and be like, I don't know, name another co-host.
Who knows? Yeah, we'll figure it
years
out. We'll figure it out. But great stuff from him. And now I just want to remind everybody about our Patreon. That's right. We launched a brand new Patreon at patreon.com/HockeyNightNY, featuring exclusive content, Q&As, columns, videos, behind the scenes, merch, and partner discounts, and even an invitation to hang with us here at Floored Media, just like Jack, so you can hang out, ask a question on the show, and all that good stuff. We hope Jack's having a good time tonight. It is a great way to support what we do here, so please check it out. We already mentioned the live events, so Ed, whenever you're ready to hit the correct buttons, we can get out of this show. All right, folks, want to send a big thanks to Ethan Sears of the New York Post for joining us tonight, and of course, a big thanks to Jack for hanging out with us in studio, our very first Patreon guest. Great stuff. Really appreciate that. And of course, a huge thanks to our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. Also, a huge thanks to Center Station Bar and Grill. Head on down to 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center for Isles games, live music, karaoke, comedy shows, and more. And a big thanks to Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW-1500 for a free consultation. And folks, remember, review, Stefan. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show on all of our fantastic platforms. Stefan Rosner, where can everybody find you on the internet and otherwise?
I'm proud of you. Stefan Rosner on Twitter, STEFEN_ROSNER, NHL.com, the Hockey News and the Elmonters, which is my Substack. Exclusive stuff every day, so definitely tune into that Monday through Friday.
There you go. You can follow myself on Twitter at Shawnee Hockey. You can follow the show on all social media platforms at Hockey Night NY. Check out HockeyNightNY.com. We got some great columns going on there with our writers such as Dylan here hanging out with us, Noah, and all that great stuff. So, folks, plenty of stuff going on here at Hockey Night New York. For Stefan, for Ed, for Jay, for Jake, for Jack, for Dylan, and for everybody else, the Hockey Night New York team. I've been Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night New York. We'll see you next time.